Welcome back to Philippines Uncut. I'm Buddy Cunana. Tonight's topic is all about charter change or constitutional reform, and my guest is Orion Perez-Dumdumi. He's the founder of the Correct Movement. Welcome, Orion, to our second segment.
Thanks again.
Now, we stopped in the first segment. We talked about the difference in a presidential and parliamentary system, specifically how people elect their leaders.
Yes, yes.
And we start by saying that when a person votes for their MP in a parliamentary system or member of parliament, he's actually voting for the party and the head of the party.
Exactly. I mean, one of the ways that can make it easier for most Filipinos to understand how this system works is maybe to understand that this is a system where instead of the ballot being one where you vote for a president separately from your local district congressman, you are in effect actually voting for both. You know, you have like a selection box, and then there are two names. The name of the what do you call this? Basically, you're going to be taking the party, just voting for the party itself, which means you're going to be voting for the local representative and whoever will be the top manager of the country.
But you know, here in the Philippines, the political setup is the MP really. It's more like it's almost feudal here in the Philippines. So the person who runs as a congressman or let's say member of parliament under a parliamentary system would really be the local warlord. So in effect, you wouldn't really be voting for the head of the party. It would be primarily from the voters' point of view. You would be voting for the person, the MP, the candidate running for the parliamentary seat.
Yeah. Oh well.
In reality, no.
In reality, yes. Now this is also why we are pitching,
which probably bugs many people.
That's true. That's true. And one of the things that many people don't understand is how the correct three-point agenda, the three stuff that we were talking about, actually works together. Because you can't just do one and then not do the other two. We've done a lot of research in our group that you need all three. You take one out, it's not going to work, or it's not going to work very well. So, for example, you just do parliamentary system, but you don't do the opening up of the economy.
You don't empower the people.
You don't empower the people. What happens is, without bringing in the foreign investors to come in, those local areas will still continue to be dominated by local monopolies owned by people from the same feudal families.
Same feudal family who control everything.
Yeah.
They control the economy, they control the politics, they control security.
Yes.
The entire machinery that makes a society run.
Exactly. But if we actually open up the economy to allow foreign investors to come in, those foreign companies would set up MNC factories in those small areas, create jobs for people, and now these people will no longer be beholden to these traditional power centers. They won't have to keep on asking for money during a baptism or a funeral or a wedding. You know, this time they will earn.
Kasal, binyag, libing.
Exactly. This time, when they have jobs in their own little local hometowns that are maybe created by a huge factory that set up there, these people will now have their own salaries. Okay, they earn their own keep, and that makes them less dependent on these people.
Let's talk about the situation in the country in general. From someone like you, who's obviously an astute political observer and analyst, and you living in Singapore and exposed to the kind of society there, very empowered society in a way, although Singapore is also very draconian, but still, still very empowered in many ways more than us.
Yes.
And looking at the Philippines, how bad exactly is the situation in the Philippines vis-a-vis other countries like Singapore in the region?
Well, it's really very bad because when you just look at it, Singapore is actually the richest Asian country.
It's the richest country in the world now.
Yeah,
right?
well,
Singapore is the richest
maybe
city.
not in the world. But in terms of GDP per capita, within Asia, okay, it has actually surpassed Japan in terms of GDP per capita. So its gross domestic product per capita or per population is higher than Japan's.
Well, if it surpassed Japan, I can think of only a few countries possibly in the world that
well,
can
that's
be
true.
richer than
That's
Singapore.
totally true.
Continue.
But let's go on. Like with the situation in Singapore, so they are one of the richest countries in the world, whereas versus the Philippines, we keep on having to send OFWs all around the world, you know. It's reached a point where there are now too many Filipinos having to go abroad that we've flooded into other countries like Singapore now, okay? And we're causing actually some resentment.
I was going to ask you about that, but I didn't know how to bring it up. But since you brought it up, okay, it's been in the news lately that there's been some resentment by Singaporeans for Filipinos. I mean, some Singaporeans or ostensibly Singaporeans have been very vocal on the internet, on social media, and they've been, to the point of really, I mean, showing great disdain for Filipinos. And there's another issue. I heard recently that they're actually protesting the celebration of Philippine Independence Day by the community on, was it Orchard Road?
In Orchard Road,
okay.
In Ngian.
What is that all about? Tell us about this.
Yeah, well, you see, one of the things that's been happening is, this is a big change from when I first arrived in Singapore. When I first came there in 2000, Filipinos were generally well liked. Okay, there was either two things. Either they looked down on Filipinos because of many of us working as maids there, but otherwise a lot of them liked us because we did our jobs well, we integrated very well. Okay, that was before, because there were not that many of us. Okay,
how many were there back then?
I wouldn't exactly have the exact count, but it was so obvious that there were not too many of us, because before in a company you would have maybe just one Filipino or maybe two or something like that, and then we would always have to eat lunch with everybody else, right? And we would basically hang out with the locals. Many years passed later on, starting in 2005 when Singapore opened up more because they needed more people to fill in a labor shortage. The Philippines was the first to keep on sending so many people because of the fact that we are an ASEAN country. So people can easily go to Singapore without a visa,
without
right?
Visa, sure.
So they'd go there, stay there for 1 or 2 months looking for work, and then they'd be able to get a job.
And then apply for a working visa.
And apply for, yes. And then what happens then is, you start having so many Filipinos that, when a Singaporean wants to go to, say, a basketball court, before...
It's overrun.
It's already, yeah.
Pinoys.
Dami ng Pinoy. It's like overwhelmed. And, hey, this is my country. Why I cannot play basketball anymore? I mean, they're going to... That's what's going to happen. So
No, it's inevitable.
It's inevitable,
and
right?
Singapore's a small place.
It's a small place.
Sure.
And it's reached the point where there are certain areas that have become totally, dominated by Pinoys. I mean, like areas like in Orchard Road or sometimes, some of our kababayans, they speak so loudly also.
So this is really a backlash of our inability to provide employment here in the Philippines for our people. So we have to export all of them, and they go overseas, and it reaches a point in a place like Singapore where, an equilibrium is no longer there.
Exactly. In a way, it's actually our fault.
Yeah.
It's our country's fault.
Okay, let's talk about the economy. Okay. Let's say a lot of people scared about opening up the economy to foreign investment, to really opening it up, are scared that, that if you allow all these foreigners in or access to our markets, to our businesses, to our industries, then there will be no place left for Filipinos. They're going to buy all the land, they're going to dominate all the industries because they have the money, they've got the expertise, the money, etc., etc., etc. So what is your reaction to that?
My reaction is that's not true. Because first of all, countries like Singapore based their own economic development program precisely on bringing in foreign direct investors over to Singapore. So Singapore was very poor, much poorer than the Philippines before. And Lee Kuan Yew said, what are we going to do when we have so many people who don't have jobs, and the British bases are leaving, because the British bases back then was one of the main employers of people, and you had this multiplier effect. So we said, what are we going to do? So, okay, if these guys are going to leave, let's bring the foreign investors in because we need to create jobs. And I don't care that these are not Singaporeans. I don't care that they are foreigners. The fact is they create jobs. Our people can learn. Maybe 5 to 10 years, some of these employees will become employers themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that just because a person starts off as an employee, he's an employee forever. People like Steve Wozniak of Apple, he used to work for HP.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs used to work for Atari. So there's this whole thing about people who are entrepreneurs having actually worked for other people. So we just need to get the ball rolling. We need this cue ball, we have the white ball that gets all the other colored balls moving, getting in. So this causes the chain reaction. Bring in foreign direct investors, and actually all the other local industries will actually become active.
How open is Singapore? I mean, can you own land there? I mean, it must be frightfully expensive because there's so little of it.
It's possible to own
property. And
own property there. Okay. It's hard also for ordinary Singaporeans to also own like landed property because it's so expensive.
It's so expensive.
So condos are easy, but for companies, for example, if you're going to set up a company, set up factories or something, then it's easy to to basically make use of land. Okay,
yeah, but I mean, can they do it here now? I mean, with our special economic zones, with our, you know.
My understanding of here is because we've totally banned ownership of land.
Sure.
You know, so it's not possible. I think it's only leases or.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So really, I mean, I wouldn't say so much the land is so much a big issue. I think the more important thing is the corporate equity, allowing business ownership.
Because 100% foreign ownership of certain businesses in certain industries.
Yeah, or at least controlling interest. Because you know, one of the biggest problems of the Philippines is that the people who framed the Constitution and all the laws that make all these restrictions, they were a bit on the swapang side, okay?
They're a bit on the left side.
On the left, or even the oligarchic side, you know.
Also.
So it's like the leftists and the oligarchs actually conspired together
to create this constitution that actually bars foreign investment.
Yeah.
Which area specifically do you guys want to open foreign investment here in the Philippines?
Well, what we want to do is we want to take it out from the Constitution. So take out all the restrictions from the Constitution.
All restrictions.
All restrictions. And then if you're going to make restrictions and say this has to be reserved, blah blah blah, do it in the law. Just do it through Congress na lang. Don't embed it in a constitution, because we are the only ones who's doing that. You know, nobody else around the world has a constitution that specifically says 60% is reserved for locals. We're the only ones who do that. If other countries have something like it, they don't have it in the Constitution.
So at
it's
least
in the laws.
if it's on the Constitution, then it becomes on a case-to-case basis.
Case-to-case.
And then we debate about it in Congress.
Yes.
Then we go to Congress.
Exactly. What we have right now is like a blanket, like
and that's,
all or not
and
allowed.
It stifles.
Like
it really stifles, and it discourages people from looking at the Philippines.
Totally. Here's what happens. You know, I've joined in a lot of cocktails and all that in Singapore, and all these foreign expats come to talk to me and say, you know, we really like your country, we like your countrymen, you guys speak good English, you're very skilled. We'd like to invest in the Philippines, but your constitution doesn't allow us to do so. And then it makes it, you know, it makes it an easier decision for us to just move over to Indonesia or Vietnam, and sometimes hire Filipinos to become OFWs there.
You mean tell me Vietnam has a freer, has
Yes.
a more open economy than we do here in the Philippines?
Yes.
Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Which is actually a traditional command economy.
Yes. Well, Vietnam
they are
actually,
communists still. I mean, officially.
They're like China. They're like China. They're still run by a communist party, but on the other hand, they've turned capitalist. So that's the thing.
So you can go to Vietnam and you can have you can open a business. It can be 100%
yes, it can be
majority foreign owned and all that.
Yes. They don't have issues with that, because for them, you're going to be paying taxes anyway.
Now, okay, Ryan, what is the future of this movement of yours? Because under this administration, from day one almost, President Aquino was really clear about it. That he's not too favorable on the issue of constitutional reform. He's not in favor of it. So what is your reaction to that?
Well, I've been saying ever since, this is the only thing that he needs to do to erase all the wrongs he has done. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but he's done a lot of stuff that has actually made us look bad, and all they've basically been doing so far has been to cover it up with nice press releases and all that stuff about economic growth, when it's all just nothing but consumption coming from remittances that people like myself and OFW send.
Now, okay, you based in Singapore, and what is the perspective of, coming from outside, let's say your colleagues in Singapore, how they view the Philippines? I mean, like, how do they rate the Aquino administration's 4 years in office? Because really, we're now going into May, and we really have just barely 2 more years of this administration left.
Well, the fact of the matter is a lot of people still can't get over the Hong Kong bus incident. So, and a lot of, I mean, you're talking about a society that is majority ethnic Chinese. So that still is a very black mark, and Absolutely. He hasn't done anything to actually fix it. This is the only thing he needs to do. If he actually does this, if he does constitutional reform, he can be like Darth Vader, who's bad for a very long time, but all he did,
in the end, go to the good side.
He went to the good side by killing the emperor.
By killing the emperor.
Yeah, I mean, he just needs to do that one thing, and he'll redeem himself.
Yeah, because I mean, let's face it, a lot of people have been talking about constitutional reform, aka charter change, for successive administrations, but they've always come against roadblocks. I mean, and obstacles, and groups have opposed it really strongly. So I doubt. I mean, I want constitutional reform personally.
Yeah.
But how do you see this moving forward? How do you see this being executed in reality?
Well, what we've done in our in our movement is we've made use of social media to spread the word among thinking, educated Filipinos. So we're basically trying to say, okay, look, most people go against it because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
So let's tackle that part where they don't understand what it's all about by spreading the word, coming up with articles, and then people will, when they read it and they understand it, then there's going to be less resistance to it.
I think a lot of fear also comes from when you talk about charter change or constitutional reform, people are scared that this will open the door again to the lifting of term limits of running for president, for vice president, et cetera, et cetera. You know. So that's what a lot of people are scared of.
Well, the thing is, this whole thing about term limits, that becomes irrelevant when what you're talking about is a parliamentary system anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a totally different system altogether. And in a parliamentary system, yes, a good prime minister can continue in office for a long time.
And a good MP, like you have people running for 7, 8 terms.
Yes,
right?
they can stay on.
Sure.
But also, on the flip side, if they make a massive cock-up, they actually get thrown out immediately.
Sure.
You don't
can be dissolved
immediately.
Vote of no confidence.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's an instantaneous thing.
I think that term limit thing was put in because a lot of people were sick and tired of, let's say, someone being in office here like a warlord for successive terms, but all that is achieved actually is fine. Maybe the warlord doesn't run again because he can't, but his wife does, or his son, who's probably not as competent or qualified.
That's one of the problems of the Philippines. We don't look. As a people, we are not very fond of looking at root causes and looking for solutions that hit these root problems.
It's the symptom.
So
we're
always
addressing
looking
the
at the
symptom.
symptom. So, for example, we say, oh, we don't want this politician to run again, so we put a term limit. Yeah, but then we create a dynastyism. So
which is what we have now.
Which is what we have now.
Yeah.
So, okay, this guy can't run, so he lets his son or daughter run, and then he's like the vice or something like that. I mean, what the heck? We just created another monster.
And then when the son can't, then it's the wife or the son's son, and then
it's ridiculous.
Philippine politics, the landscape is littered with so many examples of this happening.
And here's what happens. This is all because of the monopolistic economy. I mean, at the end of the day, all of this goes back to the economy.
Sure.
It's not even just politics. I mean, political rules are not necessarily the reason for why we have a political situation. Sometimes it's all economics.
For sure.
So, for example, these things like, it's the same families who are running all over again for office. The reason for that is economics. It's because they're the only rich people in that area. Nobody else is rich enough to run.
That's why the pork barrel system is, again, integral to the problem that we have now of political dynasties.
Exactly.
It's the fuel that makes this political dynasty machine run.
Totally.
The pork barrel system, no? So
yes.
Are you guys, how do you guys address that in your correct movement?
Well, okay, so we have this, I actually created, I wrote an article, and then I also created an infographic on my website. It's correctphilippines.org/pork_infographic. Okay, what it basically shows is all of the reasons for why the pork barrel exists is because of our present system. Present economic system being closed, okay, so people are poor, they ask for money from the politicians, then the politicians, they ask money from the national government in order to have operating costs. In the case of because of the fact that we are such a centralized country, we don't have local autonomies like in the States or Germany and all that. What we have is these local governments are all also looking for national funding as well.
Yes.
So that comes in the form of the pork barrel. And then number 3, one of the biggest problems is our presidential system. We have the separation of powers. Executive and legislative are not the same.
It's so inefficient.
It's so inefficient.
Why can't it be just under one house? No?
Yeah. What happens is because of this this separation between the two, you are likely to get gridlock. Okay, one says one thing, the other says another. So in order to keep these guys in line, they need to use money.
Pork barrel.
Pork barrel.
There you go.
So that's what happens. So in all 3 aspects, it's because of the current lousy system that we have.
And I think for Asia,
we have that.
This presidential system probably works for a developed economy or a site like the United States.
Actually,
for Asia,
well, yeah, John Gokongwei himself said back in 2006, based on what I've looked at, I feel that the presidential system is not meant for Asians. But you know what? I'll tell you something. the presidential system doesn't work for anyone either. Not even the U.S.
It's not good in the States either.
Look, you saw what happened to their shutdown, right?
Sure.
That's because of their presidential system.
Sure.
In fact, the only thing that's keeping the USA okay is because they use an electoral college, which is quasi-parliamentary, and secondly, because they're federal.
Yep.
So,
that's the one saving grace.
That's a saving grace. And plus the fact that they are also the world's largest immigrant economy, immigrant nation. So everybody, either that person himself or his dad or his grandfather or his great-grandfather is an immigrant. So they have that immigrant ethos, that ethos of wanting to work because, they came from the old land and they came to this new place and they want to work and succeed.
Okay. Hold that thought because you got to pause for a break. Guys, don't go away because another side of Orion Dum Dum, comedic side of Orion Dum Dum, when Philippines Uncut returns.